Ciao Ciao, everybody, and welcome to episode 61 of Giallo Ciao Ciao, the all Giallo show, where me and Chris are going to talk about some Giallo.
Yeah! Giallo! Fuck yeah! Oh wait, isn't that America?
Giallo, excellent. Oh, that was so fucking stupid. I can't believe I did that.
I think speaking of like ridiculously dumb movies, I'm waving to my wife who's saying hello because she just got home from work. Hi, dear. Hi.
That's where she comes from?
We're on the air. Yeah.
I thought it would be through that door behind you.
The door behind me? No, the door behind me is the oil tank, which isn't in the ground. It's actually above the ground.
Wow.
This door. This door?
Yeah, I'm so confused about the layout of your house now.
So my desk is in front of me, and forget it. It's kind of context is all busted up. But no, I was gonna say, speaking of like really dumb movies, I'm thinking about going to see Sausage Party this weekend, because it looks hilarious. I think I'm gonna go have like 4 or 5 beers and then go see it and see what I think.
Real quick, Jason says you've disabled playback on websites other than YouTube. I did not know I did that. I will try to not make that do that, but I did not know about that. So I will look into that. As far as Sausage Party goes, I have not heard nor seen anything about it. This is the first I'm hearing about your sausage party, sir.
Oh, so it's Seth Rogen, Mr. Superbad.
Yeah.
It's the first all like Pixar-esque 3D animated adventure for an R-rated audience.
Yeah, I saw a trailer for that a long ass time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's finally coming out. It's like the food. All it wants to do is be taken home from the grocery store, but then once it realizes that it's going to be subjected to extreme torture and eaten, then I think they rebel and there's some sort of an adventure. But
the fucking vegans.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Yeah, I know, right? So I'm excited about that. But but that's not Ciao Ciao at all. That's not Giallo. Let's talk about Giallo, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
In the butt.
Do it in the butt. Remember that song?
No.
It's my daughter's hair tie. For those of you at home watching the visual version, so I had the extreme privilege and pleasure to go to the Exhumed Films Italian Horror Festival last Sunday. And just an aside, those guys are really deserve some credit because they procured the original 1970, I guess 78 and 80 and 82 reels of the Star Wars trilogy, like the originals. And they had planned this humongous trilogy festival for the end of August. And they were cut down by the powers that be. I think it's 20th Century Fox, who basically came down upon them and said, "We're sorry that you've sold tickets to 2 days worth of this festival, but the only versions of the Star Wars trilogy that are allowed to go on a road show are the special editions from the late 90s. And so I don't know, it's not like they confiscated the reels, I don't think. I guess they were privately owned, but you're not allowed to broadcast them at all. So they had to cancel that whole that whole festival and replace it with a Herschel Gordon Lewis festival. And I think I talked about that on the horror show.
Yeah, now, that sounds cool. Anyway,
I'm just remembering. I'm like, now that I'm talking about H.G. Lewis, yes, I did talk about that on the horror show. But anyway, so I got there and I got there and I thought I was going to be late, but I wasn't late. And I got a really good seat, like towards the top. Oh, I'll tell you exactly what happened. So I walk in and I'm over on the sort of right-hand side of the middle section. So the way that the theater is set up at the International House in Philadelphia is your typical movie theater with the stadium seating, and there's two small sections on either side and a large section in the middle. So I go around the one side of the large section and I go up about 3/4 of the way and I find a seat on the aisle because I like the aisle seat. And Suspiria is about to start, and I look in front of me and there's a kid who was there with his dad, and he was probably 11, maybe 10. And I had a real big problem with this because, number one, that's the age when I started watching these films. So, Hypocrite City. But I couldn't, in good conscience, sit there and enjoy the movie knowing that this kid that I probably would think was too young to watch the movie was sitting in front of me. So I got up and moved. I figured if I couldn't see him, then I wouldn't be bothered by him, and his dad would have to deal with him without me being bothered by it. So I think I had some sort of a moral dilemma, but not like a moral dilemma like, hey, tap the dad on the shoulder and say, you bastard, take your kid out of here.
Super dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like, I mean, everybody's kid is different. I mean, my son is mature for his age, so maybe at age 11 you can go see Suspiria. What do I know? But I don't know about Torso though. That one's pretty heavy. Anyway, so so I moved again, and Suspiria started, and Suspiria was.
Hang on, let me mute that.
We're not doing that talkback thing, so it doesn't matter. Suspiria was as great as I remember it. It was the same print that I had seen before. There was a couple of scenes that were taken out, and I'm not sure exactly why they were taken out. Like, if you're familiar with Suspiria, there's a scene where the piano player who's blind, he ties his seeing eye dog up in front of the dance academy, and he goes in to do his piano playing. And then the witch and the little demon boy walk past the dog. And then the next scene, the one witch comes in and she's like, Daniel, you know, your dog just attacked a child or whatever. And he freaks out and he leaves and he's like, you guys are all nuts and whatever. That whole scene was missing from the print that I saw. So basically something was going on. And then all of a sudden they cut to the scene where Daniel is in the town square, and that weird scene where there was the bird's eye view of the camera comes swooping down, and then the dog eventually attacks him and bites him. So, but I think it had some censored pieces. Like, you know, the opening murder, they show the glass that cuts that girl's face in half at the end. That was not in the print that I saw. They cut away from that. But at any rate, it didn't matter. Seeing Suspiria on the big screen is always great. And then the moment that I had been waiting for was Eyeball. And so,
yeah.
And the Eyeball intro was different than the one I had seen before. So the one I had seen was the one that had a French title that said something about the labyrinth, some sort of labyrinth, and it was like the car running through the little haunted house maze type thing, and they were playing the dun 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 dun. So this intro was different. It was still shots of some of the freaky things inside the haunted house, but it was different kind of music. It was just like creepy music, and then all of a sudden this single circle that turned into an eyeball comes on the screen, and the words eyeball go across, and then the skull comes out and eyeball comes flying out of its eyeball onto the screen. And it was so awesome. I was like, this is fantastic. I loved it. And but the rest of the movie was pretty much uncensored. I haven't seen it a zillion times to know any of the nuances that might have been left out or added back in, but it was in English, and the print was basically what we're used to as far as the quality, visual quality is concerned. It's like washed out. Like everything is red in that movie to a certain extent. It's got a red tint to it. But the freaking audience loved it. They just ate it up, especially the scenes where the tour guide kept tormenting the one girl with like all the little stupid stuff. Like he put that little bug under her plate, and she lift the lid up, and it started jumping around, and he starts laughing, and then they close up on him, and he gives like a big wink, and the crowd in the movie theater just freaking lost it. They loved that part. They loved all of it. Like even the thing that was weird for me was that there was people laughing at weird parts in Suspiria that weren't supposed to be laughed at because it's dated. It doesn't necessarily hold up, but they were laughing in the eyeball sections exactly where they were supposed to. I mean, it was like so ridiculous, some of the stuff that was going on. And yeah, so I mean, I really, really liked the movie a lot better with an audience on a big screen. And I would love to see it remastered in a nice, it doesn't have to be Blu-ray, but just the original negative, at least with the right colors and everything, would be really nice to have on a DVD or something. One of the things that I didn't remember about the film was that at the end, there was a picture that the one girl who survived with the big afro, her girlfriend was the photographer. And there was a scene at the very end where she found some film and developed it. And I think like the killer came in to kill her, and the cop was like, well, this is different because she hasn't had her eyeball poked out, so there was a different reason for this killing or whatever. And then at the very end, it turns out that they developed a picture, and it was the scene in the beginning where the first girl got killed, and it was the killer, like a picture of the killer with the red gloves on. And I didn't remember that from watching the movie. Like it was clear from that picture, like who the killer was. It wasn't even like a hint, like, oh, yeah, this is a good clue. Like they developed that picture, and then the picture was like clearly her. Like here she is, like ta-da, here I'm the killer.
That's why that is like the greatest reveal ever.
It is, and the crowd went nuts. They saw that, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like if you had that picture 30 minutes ago, so many people would have been, saved. So many lives would have been saved. So it was really funny. But then I got up and split because I wasn't gonna. If the next film had been Torso, I probably would have stayed. But the next film was The Black Cat by Fulci, which I've never seen. It might even be very good. I don't know. Fulci's later period is a little weird. And then after that was Baron Blood by Mario Bava, which I probably would have stayed. But if they had done Bay of Blood instead, that would have been amazing. But incidentally, they are showing Bay of Blood at the drive-in, I think next month.
Oh my god!
Which is like the best place to see that, because I think that was like one of the original like drive-in horror slashers.
Are you going to that?
Nah, it's like a 2-hour drive. I don't think I could do it. It's like you drive out there 2 hours and wait until 10 o'clock to watch a movie, and then it's 12 o'clock, and then you have 2-hour drive home. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do it. So, but yeah, it was awesome. I hope they do more of these. I think there's some other one that's happening in like Scranton, maybe with some slashers or some Italian horror. I'm not sure, but it was a lot of fun. So I'm really glad I went to see it. I have a newfound appreciation for Eyeball finally.
Yeah.
And is it Jack? I'm gonna slaughter his last name. The guy who just took 1 million pictures in Barcelona with the freaking poncho on. Carswell.
Yeah.
Jack Carswell. That dude, he's my new freaking hero for doing that.
I don't know if you saw it, but he also did some pictures from Strange Vice and Miss Ward.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did see that.
Oh my god, dude, I'm so jealous. And I asked him, I'm like, "Are you staying at the Clipper?" And he's like, "No, I wish." But yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it right here. Nice.
But yeah, that's some fucking amazing shit. But I wanted to bring something up since you just talked about it. Did you read the Dario Argento article today?
No. No, I saw a post about it. It had something to do with him saying that he's not.
Thank you.
He's not into the remake.
Yeah, and the thing is about it is that he said that through all the times that this has been going on, and that something like the rights got bought like 7 years ago to do the remake, and it hasn't happened yet or whatever. But no one once has ever asked him anything. Like, there hasn't been any input. He hasn't had anything to say about anything. There has just been absolutely no contact, and all he hears about it is what he reads in the papers.
Oh, wow.
And he's kind of irritated about that a little bit, as one would be. But I guess the director for it has Tilda Swinton and someone else already cast in it.
I just read it. Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, Dakota Johnson, that's right.
Now, Tilda Swinton sounds like she would play one of the witch roles.
Yeah, dude. And that is actually a good casting choice, I think.
But Dakota Johnson is from the 50 Shades of Grey, right?
She's Dawn Johnson and what's her fuck's daughter.
Yeah. She would be Susie Banyan. I'm looking at her. She looks just like a Susie Banyan.
But yeah, he's against it because he says if you're gonna do it like a shot for shot thing, then it's not a remake and it's a copy. And if
was that the idea that it was going to be?
I don't know. But he said either do it that way or re-envision it somehow. And he doesn't think that they're going to re-envision it or anything. Or some bullshit. I don't know. But anyway, so
yeah, I don't even know why I just made the assumption that Argento would have had input on the remake. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, basically, it's the studio who owns it. So if somebody decides to buy it from the studio because they want to remake it, the original creator and director has no say, right? Unless they actually own the rights to the film.
Like, in the horror world, at least in America, when people do remake something, like, the original guy is like highly involved. Like, he comes on as like an executive producer or something like that. But like, I don't know.
What about like the Rob Zombie Halloween with John Carpenter involved in that?
John Carpenter, as far as I know, has been involved in like all of his remakes. I don't know about Rob Zombie's Halloween, but like The Fog and that Assault on Precinct 13 or whatever, all those he had a lot to do with. But like Tobe Hooper was involved a bit with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, I mean, I don't know. I could understand why he's a little peeved about it. I mean, 7 years of it and just hearing everything from a newspaper.
Yeah, it's true.
Pretty shit.
Well, I mean, that film, like, okay, so Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it definitely, the original represents, a very, like, it's a time capsule horror movie for sure.
Yeah.
But something about Suspiria just has this unique look. And
the look's going to be totally different, and so it's going to be a totally different movie.
Yeah, and the sound too. I mean, the sound is so over the top in Suspiria. It's like so loud in certain spots, and those weird, like, kind of like, they're like, it's almost like a gong cymbal kind of rattling sound, and yeah, I mean, it's great. The question is why. What's the? I mean, clearly the answer is we're trying to make money here because that's what we do. But I don't know.
I'm gonna just say something real quick to ease some shit. I don't know what's going on with Google Hangouts right now. I had to reinstall it for updates. I don't know if Chris did, but I had to.
I did not.
But some people are having a hard, like, they can't watch the video on the Google Hangouts page for some reason. But I guess you can on YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com and just search Ciao Ciao Network, you'll find it say like live now or whatever. And if you want to chat, you could comment on the comments and I'll kind of keep an eye out for them. So yeah. So for the live viewers, that's what's happening right now. All right. On another, oh wait, no, now it's coming back to Google. So Argento saying the movie might be watchable. That's actually funny. Jeez. Shame on you. We're not allowed to. Oh, and the best thing about that article too is he talks about Dracula 3D and what made it good and what made it bad. So
I'll have to go back and read that because
if anything's worth reading, that bit about Dracula 3D is definitely worth your time. But anyway, just to let you know a little stuff about the network stuff. Yesterday, I posted Sexy Ciao Ciao episode 1 for Blue Jeans, and we're doing this right now. And then tomorrow, I'm going to go ahead and post the Eyeball video game for everybody as a download, so you guys could actually play it and go, huh. But yeah, so that is coming for you. And yeah, so if you want to help us out, if you go to patreon.com/Ciao Ciao, you can find out all the different tiers and what suits you best and how much you love us. And that's it. So,
groovy.
Are we moving into something that might be slightly traumatic?
Slightly traumatic, for sure.
All right.
Our feature presentation. Dun, 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 dun. Wait a minute, I should be doing the
Get
thing.
your hot dogs and popcorn ready because it's time to put a hot dog in your bun. Do. Yeah.
Took me that long to find the hand clapping.
But the funny thing is, you always find that one super fast.
I don't know if you well, because once I have it up, I can jump right to the trombone. But I don't know if our if our regular listeners have noticed that I find the sound effects. I use them once per show, and I never find them again, even though like they're always up now. So
there it is.
There's the crickets.
It's funny because every time that you started, bam, the little box pops up that says Chris turned on the Google Effects app, and I'm like, oh shit,
here it comes. Oh yeah, so you can see it happening. Okay.
Yeah.
So tonight's feature presentation. Speaking of Mr. Dario Argento, is Dario Argento's Trauma. Wait. Maybe we need to do wah, 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 wah. Nah, that would be good for a Western. Ciao Ciao Western. Ciao Ciao Bang Bang.
Or do you like Hitchcock? Which I actually do.
I do like Hitchcock, but do you like that film?
Yeah, that film was actually kind of fun.
I haven't seen it in a while.
That's another show.
That is another show. So
yeah.
You want to take this or?
Yeah, take it.
All right. I'm going to take it to the limit one more time.
Oh my God, do it, friend.
So, Mr. Dario Argento really needs no introduction, especially on this show. The man who arguably ushered in the Giallo genre with his seminal work, The Bird with the Crystal Plumage from 1970. Followed that up with Cat o' Nine Tails and Four Flies on Grey Velvet for what most people call the Animal Trilogy, the Giallo Trilogy. They're not related or linked in any way except for the fact that their titles all have animals in them.
And they get progressively worse.
That again, arguably progressively worse. And so, but of course, we, just to set the stage here, we need to give props where props are due, which is that Mr. Mario Bava came into the scene with The Girl Who Knew Too Much, as well as a lot of these thrillers from Umberto Lenzi, and another film that Bava put out called Blood and Black Lace, which really set the tone for the masked killer is out there. And Mr. Argento went on to have a illustrious career. And I think, we were talking about Suspiria, which is what he's most famous for. It is not a giallo, The second installment in that series, Inferno, is also not a giallo, although there's some giallo elements. There's a mystery aspect to it, and there's sort of a amateur detective, you could say, happening as well. But it's a little bit more supernatural than a normal giallo, so they don't really fall into those buckets. He followed it up with Tenebrae, Phenomena, and Opera, which we haven't covered. Phenomena, we covered Opera, and
Deep Red's in there too.
And Deep Red being probably his best, for me, his best film and his best giallo. Maybe not his best film, but definitely his best giallo. And then Tenebrae, of course, is really great too. So, but we're looking at the Stendhal syndrome. The Stendhal syndrome. No, I'm sorry, not the Stendhal syndrome. We're looking at trauma.
I was like, what the fuck is
I'm looking at IMDb and I got them mixed up. I thought for some reason that Stendhal syndrome came out before Trauma, but that wouldn't make any sense because Asia is older in Stendhal syndrome. So Trauma was released in 1993, and it was a return to the giallo form for Mr. Argento. Let me just take a look at. I'm kind of vamping here on the details because I didn't do any pre-work here. But basically it looks like the usual cast of characters here, although I don't see Argento listed as, he's listed as a writing credit. It stars Christopher Rydell and Asia Argento and Piper Laurie, and some other people, and Brad Dourif. I don't know where he's from, but he's famous.
Child's Play.
Something. Child's Play, okay. So what's interesting about this film is that it was entirely filmed in the United States, from what I understand, and it takes place in, I think, Minneapolis.
Yep.
And like I said, it is a classic giallo, and it is Asia's first leading role. And the story is a little bit complicated. It's a giallo at its core, but it's very interesting, and it's an interesting twist on the whole giallo motive. What is the killer's motivation, kind of thing. So the film basically starts out with a woman who is a chiropractor, and she has a last minute client who comes for help, and the client turns out to be the killer. He has this crazy device that's sort of like a drill, but instead of it being a drill, it's some sort of a steel wire that's connected at both sides, and then when you press a button, it contracts. So the killer puts the steel wire around the neck of the victim and pushes the button, and by using the mechanics of this power tool is able to sever their head off. And I think the whole kind of technique is that they get hit in the head in a way that paralyzes them so that they're awake when this happens or something. I think that was part of the way they described it. So after this first girl, or this one woman, is killed, and we completely leave that scene, we're then introduced to Asia, who's about to kill herself for who the hell knows why. She has a million different reasons. She's on the side of a bridge, and our hero, Christopher Rydell, whose name is David, I think, he's driving down the road in his giant Jeep and decides that he's going to pull over in the middle of traffic and save her from herself. And this is probably, the part of the movie where people have the biggest problem, because the movie itself, you could complain that it's too long. Although I really do think that they did have a lot of story to unfold in this movie. I think they just took too long to do it. And then what they ended up doing to make it even longer was they spliced in this whole social commentary about anorexia that I'm assuming Argento had some sort of a interest in exposing in his film. So Basically,
His I guess half his daughter Anna, the one he had with Nickelodeon, she was anorexic, and
oh, okay. So
the
it
character is
really
based on her.
hit home. It really hit home for him. Then he wanted to do something about that. So the movie kind of takes a sharp turn to the right, where we're introduced to this girl who's got some problems. It looks like she might be a drug addict. You can tell eventually that she has a bulimia issue. I think it's bulimia where you eat and then purge, as opposed to anorexia where you just don't eat at all. But I could be wrong about that.
That's correct.
And it's possible that both of these things kind of work together. So eventually, somehow, she's spotted in the window. I mean, there's so many dumb things that happen in this film. Like, if she's trying to hide out from people that are after her, why would you eat in the window of a restaurant? But then again, who would be able to spot her in the window of a restaurant just driving by and realize that it was the person they were looking for? So these two guys in a white car with badges come and they take her home. So we're now introduced to her mother and her father. Her mother is some sort of a psychic who's about to have a seance. And it starts raining and Laura is trapped in her room. And the woman and all the people who are coming to participate in the seance come in. And this is Argento's classic thing where he does an establishment scene. Like he does something that is really the pinnacle scene that we have to return to as investigators to try to figure out what happened. And it's this seance. So Piper Laurie's character is sitting around the table, and somehow she's able to channel the spirit of the woman that was just killed in the beginning. I'm not sure why or how that happened. There's a real kind of weird ambiguity in this film about what's actually supernatural and what's not. I think we were supposed to assume that it really was an authentic seance. It wasn't just a hoax. And we were really supposed to hear both voices during the seance. I don't know what you think about that, Creep, if that was supposed to be legitimate or what. But ultimately, Piper Laurie's character starts talking about or starts channeling the voice of the woman who was the first victim of the headhunter, the person who's chopping the heads off people. And so they say something about the killer is present. And that's supposed to give you a clue, like, okay, all these people sitting around this table or somewhere in this house are responsible, like somebody's responsible. So all of a sudden, tree breaks through the window. Piper Laurie's character goes running out into the woods and is killed as far as we can tell. And then the father chases after the mom, and he finds this corpse of Piper Laurie's character, and then he gets killed. He gets killed with the noose around his neck, this electric noose. So now we know it's the same killer. And then eventually Laura, Asia's character, comes running out, and she sees this figure holding up two severed heads, her mother's head and her father's head. And there's lightning strikes, and the killer takes the two heads and walks away. And then basically we have this movie now where that's basically the establishing scene. And we need to, the cops come to try and figure out what's going on. Laura or Aura escapes because she doesn't want to go back to the clinic. She gets involved with the guy who picked her up, who just happens to be a sketch artist for a news station. And so they start their own kind of investigation. And so the movie kind of goes along that way. We eventually starts to pick up speed and pick up steam, and they start to figure out, they start to figure out the clues and why are all these people related, and more people continue to get decapitated by this crazy killer. And there's a real cool scene too where the kid who lives next door um, witnesses some of the stuff and decides to go into the killer's house because he's chasing a lizard, and so there's this weird kind of comedy aspect to it because it's kind of lighthearted even though like there's a killer there. And so this little boy who's basically interested in chasing butterflies, he goes into the killer's house and discovers a few things and then leaves. But ultimately, we get to a point where almost all of the victims, or I think there's a picture that they find in their searching of clues, and I won't go through all the minutia of all the clues because they're all very illogical and far-fetched, but that's typical Argento and typical Giallo, right? So they eventually find this photograph, and it has pictures of all of the people that have been killed so far except for a couple. And so our two amateur detectives decide to go and warn the people who are still alive, but it doesn't work. The one woman gets killed in the hotel, and the other guy gets killed with an elevator door. And though they find things out about it, like it only happens when it's raining. The killer only kills during the rain. And then in order to kill this one woman, because it wasn't raining, the killer set off the fire extinguishers in the hotel so that the sprinklers would spray down in the room so that it would be appropriate to the MO. So that's basically it. I mean, I left out a lot of stuff that had to do with this David character and Aura and the idea that she has this problem with anorexia and, this kind of sort of love brother sister, but also lover relationship thing that they have going on.
Yeah.
Which was a little strange.
Yeah.
And it culminates with this doctor who I don't really understand very much about the doctor at all. Like, he gave her these weird psychotropic berries to eat so that she would remember what happened that night. But since, we're eventually going to spoil this, he's in on it. I don't know why he wants her to remember, or maybe he just wants her to remember to see if she knows the truth or not. So, but the only thing that happens when she takes these berries is that she realizes that her mother and he were having an affair because she caught them having sex at one point. So eventually, I think it turns out that this doctor gets captured by the cops, and all of the heads of the people that were killed are in his trunk. And so we have that classic scene where the killer has been apprehended and the cops say the case is closed and now it's all over, and everybody lets their guard down, but we all know the real killer is still around. And for some reason or another, Asia's character leaves a note for David saying that she's going to go kill herself. And so David goes into this stupor and relapses into his drug phase and decides to try to get some fake prescription, and is laying on the side of the road and sees a clue that leads him to a house where the end scene is revealed. And the end scene is amazing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Because it's the best part of the film. So before we get to that reveal, I spoke a lot. So
No, that was good, dude.
I don't know how you got up until this point. How were you taking the film? You'd seen it before, right?
Yeah. This movie is good, but like the relationship between him and her was always such a stretch for me, because like I just felt like if he's supposed to be this like professional dude, like every chance he took seemed really unlikely with her. And
Yeah.
the whole relationship building was just fucking weird. Um and I think this might be one of those things that, like, in Italy it might not be as frowned upon or something
Yeah.
like that,
Hmm.
but it just it leaves you with like this like creepy feeling the whole movie. Like
Yeah.
even when nothing weird is happening, it's still kind of creepy. But
Yeah, and like nothing ever really happened between the two of them. They kissed a couple of times and that was it. So
yeah, which still, like, bad situation. But anyway,
yeah.
um the thing about this movie though, that I like the most is how inspired by Twin Peaks it is.
Hmm.
And it was made right after Twin Peaks ended, and it has Piper Laurie in it, um, from Twin Peaks. It
Right.
has the main character girl's name sounds a lot like Laura, and
Right.
um, the location isn't necessarily correct, but it's a lot closer than Italy is.
Yeah.
And then there's just
True.
like there's a lot of music. There's music parts that are very Twin Peaksy, and then especially at the very end of the movie when the credits are playing, there's like this like total Twin Peaksy vibe
Yes.
where the people are playing music on the porch,
Yep.
and the girl that's dancing is the daughter Anna from who had the anorexia or whatever,
Oh, is it really?
and then she died
Didn't know
right
that.
after the movie came out.
Oh,
She
wow.
motorcycle accident or something.
Oh, that's awful.
But
I had no idea.
so the Twin Peaksy stuff is what like draws me back to this movie,
Right.
more than anything else. But when you think about it, he turns a lot of stuff on its head. I mean, we haven't ruined the movie yet. Are we ruining the movie now?
Well, I was going to say that I think the story is well written. I think that um, the the motivation behind the killer and the method and the whole kind of the way that the action kind of plays out with regard to the killer and that whole thing. I think that was really well written. I think the problem was that the two leads that they cast were both terrible
Awful.
actors. Terrible.
Awful.
And I know that, he's going to cast Asia because he's trying to get her career started. Christopher Rydell, I didn't think he was very good either. Like there was some
No.
scene, it looked like there were some scenes where he ad-libbed, and he probably did because maybe, Argento wasn't able to communicate the script properly, like word for word to him. So he just said, this is what you're doing here, or I don't know. I'm just guessing, but like there's a scene where um, Aura goes to the Faraday clinic. They take her back, and he walks in and he goes up to the nurse and he says, "Hi, can I have Aura Petrescu's room number, please?" Like, that's the way you're gonna, like, you're just gonna go and just try that. Like, that's your first thing to try. And she goes, "I'm sorry, I can't give out that information. And besides, visiting hours are over." Like, none of that made any sense. And then he decides he's gonna sneak in. Now, one other thing I should say is the copy that I had, I'm not sure if it had something to do with the way that I ripped it from the DVD, because I handbraked it off the DVD and watched it on my iPhone. But there were some scenes that were in Italian language. I don't know if you saw
Mine's
that
not like that.
version. So there are some scenes, they're extended scenes, and I think that they were not filmed. I think they were cut out. It's like a director's cut. I don't think they did an English version for that. So I'm thinking about there's a scene where so the hottest girl in the whole movie is the lesbian's younger lover. Like, so there's the nurse who's one of the nurses who's about to get killed. She's like this older woman, and then there's this Asian, like, brunette lesbian lover. Like, she was like the hottest girl I think in the whole movie. But there's a scene where she, so they go to confront her, to tell her, to warn her. But the way that they go to warn her is they look like they're about to attack her for some reason, and so she runs off. This woman, this nurse, she runs off in her red Saab and drives to a hotel near the airport and parks right by the road so that they can see her car. And if you didn't want to be found, you would park kind of closer in, I would think. But at any rate, the scene where David and Aura go into the lobby to find out what room she's in and to get a room of their own is in Italian in the version that I watched. So anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but I thought that was weird because I had seen the movie before a few times. I used to have it on Laserdisc, believe it or not. And I don't remember there being any Italian scenes. So I think this version was off some sort of Blu-ray or something.
Well, I just realized that David Lynch, like that whole thing too. But as far as the different cuts of the movie in America and in the UK, the DVD cut has 3 minutes missing from the, I guess, theatrical cut, and it's mainly just elongated death scenes, like of
Right.
the thing cutting the head off. But
Yep.
in Italy, there was, I think, an extra, I want to say 10 minutes, but that might be generous. There was like a lot of other scenes, and I think that was also released in Germany.
Oh, okay.
The scenes. But like there's a scene where he calls her on the phone at the house.
Yes.
And they have a conversation that was added.
Yep. That scene was in Italian for me. Yep.
Did you have the opening with Tom Savini?
No, the opening that I had was just the one with the paper cutouts of the guillotine scene in France.
I guess there's an opening where Tom Savini plays a character and gets his head cut off, and that makes the killer like remember to kill and start killing people.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
But yeah, there were some scenes like that. Yeah. So
cool. So we'll spoil it for you now because why not? We promised we would. So basically, David finds his way to this house after following this shaded figure with a black trench coat who's wearing Laura's or Aura's bracelet with the snake. And so he realizes that I guess he sees Aura in the window and then tries to break into the house. And then he's in this weird room where there's just all of these curtains and it's all white and dreamy. And you keep hearing the words, Nicholas, Nicholas, Nicholas. And all of a sudden, the shape of Piper Laurie's character comes through the curtains and whacks him on the head with something. And he falls and he knocks over what looks like a cradle, I guess, or a crib. And you can kind of make out, if you already know what happened, you know what it is. If you don't know the ending yet, you kind of like, well, what's going on here? But there's this weird kind of round object that's like dark and charred and burned up or whatever it is. It looks like it's all rotted, that he lays next to for a second. And then she hits him again and he conks out. And then when he comes to, he's in some sort of a cell with Aura in the basement. And then Piper Laurie comes down and we have this big reveal scene. But no, we have two reveal scenes. So the first one is that Aura realizes that the night that she saw her parents die, she realized that it was her mother that was the killer because her mother was holding her own hair up and then the severed head of her father to make it look like the killer was hiding behind two heads, but instead it was really just the one head, and then Piper Laurie's character was the other head, pretending to be a severed head. Which, if you go back and look
It's
at the
totally
original
not the
version,
same.
it
Yeah.
doesn't look the same at all. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's the middle of a storm and it's lightning and it's raining, and so you got to suspend disbelief. So she realizes that her mother is the killer after all, and so then the mother comes down and the mother reveals the reason why she's killed all these people, and it basically they flash back to this very gruesome scene of Piper Laurie's character in labor in the middle of a thunderstorm. In a hospital, and there's some sort of complication with the birth, and then all of a sudden lightning strikes and the power goes out, and I think the bulb on one of the lights cracks and breaks and falls, and either the glass from the bulb decapitates the baby's head, or because of the shock of the explosion, the surgeon cuts the baby's head off with the scalpel. They didn't really make that clear. It was just all of a sudden everybody in the scene starts screaming because the baby now is dead and its head's chopped off, and everyone's freaking out. And it's a pretty freaky scene. Like, everybody's going nuts. One woman is crying, the other one's throwing up and screaming, and they decide that instead of trying to deal with this emergency of this dead baby, they're going to just wheel Piper Laurie off for some shock therapy to see if they can just make her forget that it ever happened. And so she basically said, look, they tried to shock the memory out of me, but it didn't work. And so I came back to take revenge on all of them and chop all their heads off. And so that was her whole motive. And so the end scene is we've got our little guy, our little butterfly guy, who we've forgotten all about, but lives next door, and just decides, hey, you know what? Since I've managed to steal the crazy the gadget, the decapitation gadget. He stole it and drops it down, and from the roof. I guess he's like a level above, like there's a hole in the floor or something, and he drops it down over her neck and pushes the button, and she is killed. She is decapitated, very similarly to the ending of Deep Red.
Yeah.
Which I won't spoil just in case you've never seen Deep Red, but and I actually think I need to change the points on that because she wasn't accidentally killed, right?
I don't know. Did the kid mean to do it? Like, he's like, I'm going to kill her.
I don't know. It seemed like he put the rope down. I'm trying to remember. I have to go back and watch it. But did the rope go around her neck? But then did the button, like if he dropped it, then he certainly couldn't have pushed the button himself, because you have to hold that button, right?
Yeah.
To make it contract. And so I'm going to call it accidental because it gets more points that way.
Yeah.
So so her head gets ripped off, and it rolls a few times over, and she says, Nicholas, 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 when her head rolls over. And that's the end. And the cops come and everything's cool. And it's this horrible, horrible thing that happened, but now it's all over with. And, this somber ending, and the credits roll. And then all of a sudden the reggae band starts playing for some reason.
Yeah.
And like you said, then it goes into this weird kind of like that, whatever the name of that, Angelo Baldamenti music.
Yeah, but Twin Cruise and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they're putting out like a fucking bitchin' vinyl remaster of the soundtrack, if anyone gives a shit.
Oh, that's awesome.
The thing about this, though, as you bring up Deep Red, there's a lot of correlations with Deep Red in this movie. And I think like the whole deal, like with you have the psychic, like you had in Deep Red, and she gets killed in the pivotal scene of what the fuck's going on. But then it's like, hey, fuck you. She's not really dead. Haha. I tricked you. The killer's here. She said it because it's her. Do you
right.
You know,
You're right.
like a lot of it seemed like a lot of Argento not making fun of himself, but like doing stuff he's done before and then kind of flipping the script on it.
Right.
So with that said, I think this movie has like a whole other level of watchability to fans.
Uh,
So
Agreed.
that's another fun part of it for me.
Do you think that the scene where um, Brad Dourif's head goes down the elevator shaft was a Vertigo homage? Because that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, but at the same time, like just the whole elevator thing in general with Deep Red,
Right.
like to me, when I'm watching this the whole time, I'm thinking like Deep Red and Cat of Nine Tails and
Yes.
things
Yep.
like that. Like there's so many similarities, but yeah, it's weird because you kind of want to say like, what the fuck was he thinking? But at the same time, it's like, why? I mean, I don't know if it's a thing like where he's like, okay, people are expecting these kind of things from me. Because like you
Right.
gotta understand too, like at this period, like the VHS tapes being everywhere
Yeah.
happening. Like
Yeah.
the early 90s is when, like 80s is when like the video stores happened, but the early 90s is when like you could throw a rock in any direction and hit a fucking video store.
Right.
So like he had to have known at this point that a lot of his movies, even if they're not being like released legitimately, are being bootlegged like fucking nobody's business. So I don't know if he was like sitting there going, okay, I'm going to do the things that I do or I have done and fucking make them different. Like there's so many weird little bits. Like as you watch it, you'll say, I've seen him do this before. I've seen him do this before. And
Right.
yes, you could say that about any Dario Argento movie, but
Right.
this one, it has like there's just like something nice about it. Like a, not calming, but like a, it's nice as he's fucking his own shit up, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that all of the Argento Jolly, or even just all the Argento films, reflect the period and reflect kind of are self-referential to a certain extent. I think that Trauma. If there was a gun to my head and I had to pick between Trauma and Opera, I think I would probably pick Trauma.
Hell yeah.
Although there are some set pieces in Opera that are really well done.
Yeah.
But it's the whole idea of the needles with the tape under the eyes and that sort of thing.
Do you know
But
what the budget of Opera was?
no.
By any chance? Because I feel like almost like Trauma's like a big turning point because he did what's that called? Is it Two Evil Eyes? Is
Two
that
Evil
right?
Eyes. Yep.
He did that right before this with Romero, and that was, I believe, a American funded thing, but Trauma
Yep.
was his first fully fledged American budget. But I'm trying to figure out if, because Trauma was a $7 million budget,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to figure out if this was the beginning of the decline of his big budgets that he was used to.
Well, I read somewhere that he said that he hated filming in the U.S. and that he would never do it again after Trauma. And I don't think he ever has filmed in the U.S. again.
What about his Masters of Horror thing? Did he do that over there?
I don't know that.
Jennifer or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. But I
Well,
know like Stendhal Syndrome came after this,
uh,
and Stendhal Syndrome is so different from anything that Argento has ever done because it's kind of like a Giallo, but it's not because the person who's the bad guy it's almost like a Polizio meets a Giallo kind of hybrid, but also kind of this dark, pre-millennium, like year 2000 kind of Generation X kind of gothic kind of thing. Not gothic, like scary haunted houses gothic, but like a goth.
Yeah.
The trend, the dress and the style trend.
Yeah.
And Trauma, the thing about Trauma is it looked really well filmed. It looked like it was too dark in a lot of scenes. It looked very polished, but like you said, it did have that TV kind of feel, that Twin Peaks kind of soft.
But I don't think he ever broke out of that. Like after that point.
Yeah, I
Like,
don't think so either.
a lot of his stuff looks very TV, and a lot of his stuff I know was made for TV.
Yeah.
After this, but like everything after this seems very different. Like Trauma to me is like the top of the roof. You know, it's like all of his stuff before Trauma, all of his stuff after Trauma.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because I mean, if you think about Stendhal Syndrome, Phantom of the Opera kind of doesn't really count. I don't know what the hell that was all about. Sleepless was good, but like you said, it's got that same look to it, that TV look. Although, you know, for the sake of TV, he didn't dial down the gore at all. I mean, he kept things.
Well, actually, in this movie, he did dial down the gore a lot.
Yeah.
The stuff that Tom Savini was supposed to do, like almost every single thing, he would come up and say, I want more suspense instead of gore, so we're not going to do this.
Huh.
Like one of the things that was supposed to happen was there was supposed to be one of the decapitations was supposed to happen, be shot from inside the girl's mouth.
Ooh.
And but then he wanted her to talk or something, so they scrapped the whole thing after Tom Savini made this big giant fucking head inside of. But I don't know. But there was just a lot of stuff that got cut out of this. But I mean, I know that the gore in the other films is a little bit more gory, but I think almost Giallo is more cinematic than anything else he did in the 90s. Have you seen that yet?
No, I still haven't seen it.
It might just be because Adrian Brody's in it, but
I got halfway through Mother of Tears and turned it off. I did watch Sleepless. I liked that one. I liked Sleepless. I think I remember it being the guy who was in Deep Red, who played opposite David Hemmings, was in Sleepless. And the card player was really bad. I remember the card player being really bad. So one day I'd like to sit down and watch Giallo, just because when I heard that Argento was making Giallo, and it was coming out in 2009, and I had already had the idea for my website, I said, this is it. If this film pushes it over the top and gets everybody interested in Giallo again, I'll have my site and it'll already be up. And then it turned out that the film, nobody liked it. So what are you going to do?
You know what though, dude? Like, I need to watch it again because, like, the first time I saw it was before we started doing the show,
right?
And I really liked it. So, I don't know. Maybe I was just drunk one night watching it, but I thought it was a fun fucking movie. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know like we're supposed to be talking about Trauma right now, but I feel like Argento's career has been so, out of anybody, I think his career is the most like under a microscope.
Well, and it's so polarizing too, because if you go from, you know, a certain point and then go backwards in time, it's just, some of the stuff is just absolutely brilliant. And then some of the other stuff towards the later side, I mean, it's weird. Like, it's kind of like Fulci. Fulci had the same situation where I think once he got past House by the Cemetery and started doing, I think, some of these other films that were kind of like horror, but they were a little on the weird side, like Demonia and Murder Rock and that sort of thing. Like he had some real clunkers in there. But Fulci, he directed a million films compared to Argento.
Yeah.
But Argento, like Suspiria, Inferno, Tenebrae. I mean, 3 in a row, unbelievable films. And then Opera, I think, came after that, and that kind of was a little bit different. I mean, people liked Opera when it came out. People were talking about how crazy it was. And I think that the gimmicks that of Opera kind of outshined how bad of a film it was, like as far as the script and the acting and the story and whatnot.
I think too, like Fangoria, like championing him to horror fans.
Yes.
At that point, like he could have like taken a shit on a fucking piece of toast and put it out, and Fangoria would have said it was the greatest fucking thing that ever happened.
Yeah, and I think that Opera was the film where Fangoria was really like at its heyday, and so Opera was just and there were books that were coming out at the time. I think Charles Blown, he did this book called Deep Red, the horror handbook, and did a big tribute to Argento in that book. And so they were pushing it really hard in America. I think it was partially because of how great Suspiria was, and how much you have this filmmaker who was so underappreciated by the current crop of kids that were watching slashers that didn't know anything about Argento at all.
And I think too the VHS boom made Suspiria like a much bigger hit.
Yeah,
over here. But
I know that like some of the older fans of horror got to see Suspiria when it made its rounds in the late 70s in the drive-ins and the theaters. But Suspiria took a while to come out on VHS. I think it was in the 80s it finally came out. But
I mean, just imagine if you've never seen, like if you're back in that time and you had never seen anything like Suspiria, and you go to the fucking drive-in,
right,
expecting just to see some shit movie that you could bang your girlfriend to,
yeah, right,
and then fucking the colors of Suspiria fucking just start fucking flooding you, like to see that something like that for the first time was probably fucking mind-blowing for a lot of people, dude. Like I can't imagine what it would be like to not have seen all the stuff that I've seen and be able to see that without ever having any preconceived notions of what a super colorful, beautiful horror movie could be.
Yeah.
It's just, it's fucking totally crazy.
Especially the way that they start the film off with that ultra violent opening scene. I mean, you got the colors and you got the music and you got this weird just look. And then all of a sudden, all of this craziness with this unseen force that just kind of smashes its hand through the window and pulls the girl's face through the glass. It's like crazy.
And I mean, there's some like locations in that movie that are so unreal that it's nuts. But then at the same time, there's a lot of shots in that movie that are fucking utter horseshit, like like just in dialogue scenes outside and stuff, like they're so awful. It's like, what the fuck is going on right here? But anyway, we're way off topic now, but yeah, Argento.
So Trauma did very well on the Giallo score, I have to say. I didn't get a chance to publish it, but I watched it today at work, and while I was watching it, I scored it. So for a 1993 film, it got an 88 on the Giallo score. And that's because basically what you said. I mean, Argento just referenced his own movies. The only points it didn't get, let me take a look here. It missed out on points because it didn't occur during the classic period. So it missed out on 5 points there. Otherwise, it got 55 out of 60. It missed out on points because it didn't have an Italian location and it didn't have our classic three composers who wrote the score. So it only lost 6 points there out of 30. And then the signatures, I mean, we had everything. We had a chase scene. We had that guy who, the fat guy who watched Oprah and Donahue as the comic relief character. And we had, all right, now look, I gave it a point for death from falling. And really, we're talking about the head that fell. But he was still alive while he was falling, so I'm giving it the point. And there actually was, in one of these scenes, I think it was the scene where Brad Dourif's character gets his head chopped off with the elevator. There was a doll, some sort of a doll in that scene. Like, where did that come from? So it got a doll, and there was a gay lesbian couple. There was photography. There was pseudoscience. There was a psychologist. There was that visual misinterpretation. So it got 9 out of 10 points in that section. So 88 points for Trauma.
And every single thing you just said is stuff that he's done more than once.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy. I'm beginning to think that the Giallo score is tailored to Mr. Argento. So.
Yeah, it probably is.
Oh, man. But then again, every movie that was made after Bird with the Crystal Plumage was tailored to be a movie like that.
Well, Who Saw Her Die got a 92. Don't Torture a Duckling got a 92. What Have You Done to Solange got a 91. The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, 91. Seven Bloodstained Orchids got a 88. Torso, 86. So, but I didn't mention that Deep Red is in there, Four Flies is in there, Tenebrae is in there, Bird with the Crystal Plumage is in there. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely tailored to Argento. It's a combination of Argento and Bava and Martino and Fulci, but basically, you know, I'll do whatever the fuck I want. I don't care. Hey, like that answer.
That's a good answer, man. You should stick with that one. There it is. So we like Trauma, and we think you should watch it because it's good.
Yeah, I would just say that Trauma, it could have been so much better if they had cast a couple of different people in the role and figured out a way to kind of push that story along just a little bit more or a little bit quicker. Well, I think I would have liked it more.
Quicker is the key word there. But I also think that as a whole, how the reveal of the past trauma to the killer comes out is done better here than I think he's done in his other films.
Yeah. No, I liked it a lot. It was awesome. Totally awesome.
Yee. All right. So the next time we do this show, I would like to pick a film, if you don't mind.
Do it.
What I would like to watch is a film that we talked about on the Ciao Ciao Roundtable.
Okay, which I didn't get a chance to listen to.
Oh, you should definitely listen to it. We talk about pseudoscience and Giallo, Giallo and pop culture, and subgenres of Giallo.
Cool.
It was really a good talk. But a movie that we did talk about that apparently I was the only one who have seen is one called The Bloodsucker Leads the Dance.
Okay, I've heard of it.
It is very trashy.
Awesome.
A heads up, there is some very graphic sexual action in this film, but it is definitely one to watch at least once, if nothing more to say that you've watched it.
Cool. Now, is it considered a Giallo?
Yeah, I don't know how. I'm gonna come right out and say it. It's kind of iffy, but no, there are some definite Giallo elements in it for sure.
Cool. Italian Gothic. Oh, one of the plot keywords is vaginal masturbation. All right. There you go.
You might actually have a movie that tops Sister Ursula and Slaughter Hotel for utter crap. So get ready, because
I'm ready.
that's going to be fun. We have to do something really crappy after watching an Argento movie. We got to get our palate back.
We have to come back to Earth. Very good. I like that idea.
So
Bloodsucker leads the dance.
Yeah, and the title I think is very misleading, kind of. But anyway, but yeah. So try to take a look at that film before you don't see it. And then for those of you interested, Blue Jeans, the Gloria Guida film that I did on Sexy Ciao Ciao, it is available on YouTube in both the unrated and the TV edit.
Great.
So if you want to take a look at that.
Awesome. So what's next? What's next for the Ciao Ciao Network? Is it
I'm probably gonna do a commentary on Thursday, and then we'll have the Ciao Ciao Radio on Friday. Don't know what that's gonna be yet. But then the next show we have Apocalypse Chow on Monday and Western Ciao Ciao on Tuesday. We're going to be doing Django with Franco Nero.
What's Apocalypse Chow? Is that like a...
It's the post-apocalyptic show.
Okay.
Those really fun, shitty action kind of sci-fi, not really sci-fi, desert Mad Max ripoffs. That show is very long.
Is that different? Is that different than Sword and Sandal?
Yes.
Okay.
This was like a big 80s genre.
Okay. Is Conquest one of those by Fulci? Fulci made a film called Conquest. I don't know if that's a Sword and Sandal epic film or if that's a post-apocalyptic film.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's basically Mad Max clones.
Then yeah, that's probably
the idea.
More of the apocalypse one.
Clash of the Titans. And then eventually y'all be getting back to horror Ciao Ciao, which I won't be able to participate in because I will be down the shore for groovy end of summer times with the fam.
Which sounds amazing.
Absolutely.
But we will be doing The Church.
Oh yeah, that's right. That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie, The Church.
Well, if you want to add anything, just voice record something real quick and send it over.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I will.
You should.
Cool, man.
Alrighty. Well, until next time, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Yay.